Hey y'all, so today we're going to continue back in chapter 12, talking about the title is Battle Scars, Membership in the Scar Clan, and she's specifically talking about secrets and how damaging they are. And so we're going to go ahead and continue on in this last section. We had started reading in this section called The Dead Zone, and so we're going to pick back up in the middle of that section. And I just want to set our mind in the right place, and that is this. So secrets are, in my opinion, like kind of like chains, handcuffs. It's they're extremely burdensome, and what's funny is a lot of times the people who proclaim to love being fully open and who claim to love truth are the very ones who are habitual liars. And so I think a lot of times we can apply the same lens to a lot of the proclamations that the people that we've found to be narcissistic in our lives have made, projections, and we realize that the very things that they claim to hate in other people are actually the things that they're doing, but they're so good at living beneath this cloak or the mask that we don't see it. And it's almost like, I think that's why you hear people say, words are like spells, and it's true, because it's like I think that their reasoning must be, if I say these are the things I believe, if I say these are my values and the way I live my life, then this person's going to take that in as truth and not even notice, much less question the things that I'm actually doing. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like they must think that making these statements is a way to prevent being questioned. And sadly, when you're naive and you're passing out trust, freely, then that can absolutely happen. And I'm saying this from experience where, you can, when you're naive, you can believe a person's words over their actions. And so, and then, eventually something snaps you awake and you start, saying, hang on a second, there's some contradictions going on here, and, you always, I think that it's human nature to make even unconscious assumptions that other people are like you on the inside when, it's not the case. And people use that against us. So, I think that we can very easily say, well, even if we catch something, well, they didn't mean it, or, I must be misperceiving XYZ, when in reality, you're not misperceiving what you're seeing with your own eyes and hearing with your own ears. And that's where we can gaslight ourselves, because we want to give people compassion. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt, because again, we're assuming that they're like us on the inside. And so you have to, first of all, and I think I've mentioned this before, the first thing, in my opinion, is to acknowledge that all people are not the same. Because if you think that all people are the same, even if you're not going around consciously thinking it, if it's just a belief you have, then you're not going to notice the toxic qualities in people that are not like you. You're just going to unconsciously even or subconsciously make excuses and not fully catch what's going on. And I think that understanding these mechanics helps us to understand other things, like secrets, like secret keeping, which is what this chapter is about. And I was reminded of the fig leaves in the Garden of Eden. And because it all goes back to, that first lie, that first manipulation from the serpent, saying, no, it's a lie. You're not going to die if you eat this apple. And so it all goes back to that, And so, what did they do when they were caught making a wrong decision, going against what God said, believing the serpent? They were naive, right? In, not knowing who to believe, even though it's hard to give them a pass because God is God, right? They should have known that God is the ultimate. How do you question God? But let's just, for our purposes, our learning purposes, say maybe they were just super naive, and so they were easily manipulated the way we can be easily manipulated when we're naive, right? What did they do? They were ashamed. It created shame in them, and so they began to hide behind fig leaves. And so there's a lot of different things that can cause people to keep secrets, to hide. And the thing is, a narcissist lives that way, and they're, it's a constant uniform of fig leaves at all times. And then I think for someone who is on the receiving end of psychological abuse, who has been shamed as a form of control and manipulation, then that can create, keeping that. It's kind of like you've heard the expression, like hiding behind a smile. It's like we can, carry the burden of feeling bad about ourselves because we were made to feel bad about ourselves, but we're keeping the fact that we feel bad about ourselves a secret. Does that make sense? So like when people say, "How are you?" we're not going to just unload and say how we really feel. Sometimes we just smile and say, we're good, but even that in itself is an untruth. It's a lie, and even that is burdensome and exhausting. So can you even imagine how exhausting it must be for a person who lives completely under lies? That's just the way they live. I can't even fathom what that would be like. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and dive into this, and I had left off in the middle of the section called the dead zone. So we're going to pick back up in that section here in chapter 12, and I'm going to read a little bit to you. It says, "The dead zone is greatly protected. It is a place of endless doors and walls, each locked with 20 locks, and the homunculi, the little creatures in women's dreams, are always busy building more doors, more dams, more security, lest the secret escape. There is no way to fool the wild woman." Let me back up real quick. She said dams. Remember I had recommended that you watch the Disney movies, Frozen 1 and 2. And I believe it's in the second one where the ultimate last step to freedom was to bust down the dam to let the river flow. So that's just a little connection you can make here. So anyway, she's talking about in dreams, or I think she is. I don't know. Let's go back. "The dead zone is greatly protected. It is a place of endless doors and walls, each locked with 20 locks, and the homunculi, the little creatures in women's dreams, are always busy building more doors, more dams, more security, lest the secret escape. There is no way to fool the wild woman, however. She is aware of the dark bundles in a woman's mind that are tied round and round with ropes and bands. These spaces in a woman's mind do not respond to light or grace. So, covered over are they?" Now this is really important, okay? She says these spaces in a woman's mind do not respond to light or grace. So covered over are they. That's where that connection to fig leaves can come into. And so we're never going to be free until we uncover the things that we don't want to admit even to ourselves. That's the first step to true freedom, is to admit things that we don't want to look at. remove the fig leaves for exposure to ourselves first and foremost, and God, right? To ourselves and God together. And that's the gift offered of freedom. And that's also what will forever remain in darkness for those who choose to live a lie and behind the fig leaves. So it says, and of course, since the psyche is greatly compensatory, the secret will find its way out anyway, if not in actual words, then in the form of sudden. Yeah, this is definitely descriptive of a narcissist here. Check it out. The secret will find its way out anyway, if not in actual words, then in the form of sudden melancholias, intermittent and mysterious rages, all sorts of physical tics, torques, and pains, dangling conversations that end suddenly and without explanation, and sudden odd reactions to movies, films, and even television commercials. Yes, just, a lot of times that for those of us who have discovered that we were involved with in some relationship dynamic a narcissist, that was one of the first clues, was something that just was odd, an odd response, an odd lack of response, an odd just something odd, and out of place. A lot of times that's our first indication that something's off with this person. It says the secret always finds its way out, if not in direct words, then somatically, and most often not in a way that it can be dealt with and helped in a straightforward manner. Yeah, so somatically, I think that would refer to like body language, so people who are, what do you call them? They're like a human lie detector, you know what I mean? It's those people who are in that line of work, that's the kind of stuff they look for, is how the truth comes out, even in flashes, in the face and body language and expressions, things like that. So it says, so what does the woman do when she finds the secret leaking out? She runs after it with great expenditure of energy. Yeah, this is like when the narcissist is scrambling, right? Trying to cover their tracks if they fear exposure. It's like, I gotta hurry up and create, an even bigger show of how great a person I am, or how religious a person I am, or whatever it is. So this may resonate for some of you, having seen this from the people and that in your life like this, right? She beats, bundles, and burrows it back down into the dead zone again, and calls her homunculi, the inner guardians and ego defenders, to build more doors and more walls. The woman leans against her latest psychic tomb, sweating blood and breathing like a locomotive. A woman who carries the secret is an exhausted woman. Yeah, and a lot of times, people who are on the receiving end of narcissistic psychological abuse, it's when you're in the thick of it, and you care about this person, be it a friend, lover, family member, whoever it is, business partner, we're making excuses for them. And so when they have these outbursts or whatever it is, we're carrying that secret for them. Like, we don't go and share this kind of stuff with our friends and our family, other people we know. So we're also carrying their secrets. You know what I mean? So it's like spreading that burden onto us. And then when they add shame and the way they manipulate our minds, it's kind of like, now we're carrying even more burden. It's just all a form of control. So then she gets into a story called The Woman with Hair of Gold. So the story goes like this. It says, there was a very strange but beautiful woman with long golden hair as fine as spun gold. She was poor and without mother or father, and lived in the woods alone, and wove upon a loom made of black walnut bows. Bows? A brute who was the son of the coal burner tried to force her into marriage, and in an effort to buy him off, she gave him some of her golden hair. But he did not know or care that it was spiritual, not monetary gold that she gave him. So when he sought to trade her hair for merchandise in the marketplace, people jeered at him and thought him mad. Enraged, he returned by night to the woman's cottage and killed her with his hands and buried her body by the river. For a long time, no one noticed that she was missing. No one inquired of her hearth or health. But in her grave, the woman's golden hair grew and grew. The beautiful hair curled and spiraled upward through the black soil, and it grew looping and twirling more and more, and up, until her grave was covered by a field of swaying golden reeds. Shepherds cut the curly reeds to make flutes, and when they played them, the tiny flutes sang and would not stop singing. Here lies the woman with golden hair, murdered and in her grave, killed by the son of the coal burner, because she wished to live. And that is how the man who took the life of the woman with golden hair was discovered and brought to justice, so that those who live in the wild woods of the world, like we ourselves do, were safe again once more. She says, while this tale overtly gives the usual instruction to be careful in lonely places out in the woods, the inner message is profound, and that is that the life force of the beautiful wilder woman personified by her hair continues to grow and to live and to emanate conscious knowing, even though overtly silenced and buried. Yes, it's like all those red flags we pick up on in a bad situation that we ignore. They don't go away, even though we ignore them. They're still there. And as we continue to experience more and more in a toxic situation, I feel like, it grows. That knowing that she talks about deep inside of us, it grows until we can no longer deny it, right? She says this segment is beautiful and valuable, and additionally it tells us something about the nature of secrets, and even perhaps what it is that is killed off in the psyche when a woman's life is not properly valued. In this tale, the murder of the woman who lives out in the woods is the secret. She represents a core, K-O-R-E, the woman who will not marry aspect of the female psyche, the part of a woman that wants to keep to herself alone, is mystical and solitary in a good way, and is taken up with a sorting and weaving of ideas, thoughts, and endeavors. It is this self-contained wilder woman that is most injured by trauma or by the keeping of a secret, this integral sense of self that needs not have much around itself in order to be happy. So it's like what happens to us when we betray ourselves. When we know something but we don't want to believe it, it's like that's the beginning of self-betrayal. You know what I mean? Denying what we know to ourselves. And I think that's what she's talking about, that part of us that gets injured. That most solid, what's the word I want to say? It's like the core, like she says, the core of ourselves. If we're not even honest with ourselves, then, that's like the ultimate betrayal, I feel like. So, it really wasn't that windy when I first came out here, but of course I set up and now it is, so we'll see. Yeah. So she says, no one in the fairy tale asks about the absence of this vital woman. This is not unusual in fairy tales or in real life. The families of the dead women in Bluebeard, remember that story a few chapters back, do not come seeking their daughters either. Culturally, this needs no interpretation. Sadly, we all know what it means, and many women, too many, understand that lack of inquiry firsthand. Often the woman who carries secrets meets with the same response, though people may perceive that at her center, her heart is pierced. They may accidentally or purposefully go blind to the evidence of her injury. And I feel like sometimes people, like our friends, people that are close to us, they may know we're going through a hard time, but they may not know how to deal with it. You know what I mean? But it's those that reach out to us when we're quiet that they're attuned to us. Even if they're just sharing their presence, that can be a beautiful thing. In hard times, even when they don't know what to say. And so she says, but part of the miracle of the wild psyche is that no matter how badly a woman is killed, she says killed in quotes, No matter how injured, her psychic life continues, and it rises above ground, where in soulful circumstances it will sing its way up and out again. Then, wrongful harm done is consciously apprehended, and the psyche begins restoration. Yes. So, again, we have to admit hard things to ourselves, things we don't want to admit. And in the end, we're glad. We're so glad that we were strong enough to face and admit things, situations, relationships, that were wrong for us, so that we can get free, because the things that are right for us won't have a chance to come to fruition until the things that are wrong for us are, no longer in the way. So it says, it is an interesting idea, is it not, that a woman's life force can continue to grow even though she is seemingly without life. It is a promise that under even the most anemic conditions, the wildest life force will keep our ideas alive and developing, albeit only for a while underground. They will pry their way above ground in time. This living force will not let the matter rest until the buried woman's whereabouts and circumstances are revealed. As with the shepherds in the story, this involves drawing a breath and putting the soul breath, or pneuma, through the reeds. Yeah, I'm wearing my inhale exhale shirt today. Yes, breathing is so important, right? Especially deep breathing that you do consciously. Yes, as with the shepherds in the story, this involves drawing a breath and putting the soul breath, or pneuma, through the reeds in order to know the true state of affairs in the psyche and what must be done next. This is the work of crying out. Yes. Then the digging work follows, she says. So yeah, so there's your steps right there, and then the digging work follows, meaning then we can start to spend some time with what we've been through, to process, to pull and extract the lessons from, that comes next. But the first step is to move to safety if that's an issue. And I would encourage you, I just want to pause here since I mentioned safety. If you're experiencing some odd health conditions, I would just highly recommend that you go and get tests done. There's a lot of different kind of tests you can have done. Blood work, my understanding is that blood and urine will only show, if you're concerned about like toxic substances, it'll only show a short period of time, 24, 48 hours, but you can always have your hair tested. So there's a lot of different things you can do, and I just encourage you if that's a concern. But please always put safety first. You know what I mean? You don't want to jeopardize that. So then she goes into talking about just more expansion on secrets. She says the wildest woman cannot live with this. Shameful secrets cause a person to become haunted. You can't sleep. It's like a cruel barbed wire, she says, that catches you across your gut. Yes. So, yeah, she says wild woman digs things up, throws them into the air, chases them around. She does not bury and forget. Exactly. It says keeping shame a secret. Yeah, keeping shame a secret. So, what was done to you, keeping that a secret, is profoundly disturbing to the psyche. Yeah. And, I think it's even more important that you find, if you do choose to share with a person specifically, or people specifically, that you're very careful in who you choose to share with. These people may circle back to the person that did the damage to you. And I think they call them flying monkeys, where they pretend to be for you and really they're not. So the other thing is that, a lot of times people won't know how to respond to you, and that can actually just make you feel worse. So I would just be really careful who you choose to share things with. She says, then she goes into dreams. There are many dreams that, when analyzed, are understood to be about immense and extensive feelings that the dreamer in real life is unable to cry out. Yeah, when we hold things in, sometimes it does come out in our dreams, and then symbolism. which is so intriguing to me, symbolism in general. I think there's something called archetypal symbolism, which is like, I think, I need to look into it, but I think it is related to somehow like the collective unconscious. Like we all tend to manifest the same symbols in our dreams to represent the similar concepts. So I think that's just so incredibly interesting and something I want to look more into. But yeah, this kind of stuff certainly pops up in our dreams. She says, yeah, like I've had this happen. She gives the example, like when the dreamer tries to call out but no voice issues forth. Or like if you're trying to run away from a dangerous situation in your dream and your legs don't work, it's like you're just running in place. It's a bad dream. You can always evaluate recurring nightmares too. I used to have those. So she had mentioned something in the past few chapters talking about dark man dreams, and that was what I had recurring, and it stopped. Ironically, I guess I just reached a certain level of awareness, and so I guess my unconscious figured, I was on the right path. So it didn't need to work so hard to give me those dreams anymore to get a message across or something, right? But yeah, dream interpretation, super interesting. So she says, remember Canto Hondo, the deep song, and Hombre del Alma, the starved soul? In time, these two forces, through dreams and the woman's own wild life force, rise to the surface of the psyche and break out the necessary cry, the cry that frees. Yes. A woman finds her voice then. She sings out, cries out the secret, and is heard. Remember how the hair in the story, broke through the soil at that point, and then the shepherds cut the hair as it grew and made flutes, and so her hair became an instrument, right, to produce a message, a song. She sings out, cries out the secret, and is heard. So freeing, to lift that burden. Her psychic footing will be restored. Yes. So now we've mended that self-betrayal. Once we have admitted hard things to ourselves, to God, if that's part of your belief system, and to someone that has earned our trust, that we know is on our side and for us, then we have begun the process to mend that self-betrayal. And so, very important. It says, this fairy tale and others like it are medicines to be applied to these secret kinds of wounds. They are encouragement, advice, and resolution. What stands behind the formation of fairy tale wisdom is the fact that for both women and men, woundings to the self, soul, and psyche, through secrets and otherwise, are part of most persons' lives. Neither can the subsequent scarring be avoided, but there is help for these injuries, and absolutely there is healing. Yeah, we don't want to operate with things left unsettled. That's always going to, keep bothering us and prevent further growth. We have to take care of those kind of things. So then she says, repressing secret material surrounded by shame, fear, anger, guilt, or humiliation effectively shuts down all other parts of the unconscious that are near the site of the secret. This is interesting. It is like shooting an anesthetic into, say, a person's ankle in order to do a surgery. Much of the leg above and below the ankle is also affected by the anesthesia and no longer has feeling. This is how secret keeping works in the psyche. It is a constant IV drip of anesthetic that numbs far more than the area at issue. So it makes you wonder if that's what happened to narcissistic people, to make them become so numb and to just totally have no empathy, or seem to have no empathy, to become so robotic. But again, it's certainly not an excuse to further lie to and abuse other people. That's for sure. She says, no matter what kind of secret, no matter how much pain is involved in keeping the secret, the psyche is affected the same way. Yeah. So we don't want to live in that world, in the world of lies and secrets, and where we're keeping what we have experienced a secret for the person who manipulated our minds for their own gain, for control. We don't want to live keeping secrets for them. We don't have to go and make a big fuss about it, and call in more drama into our lives. I mean, I don't want to do that personally, but to just carry the burdens, honestly, I've seen what that does to a person, in people that I know, and it's very burdensome, and it's no way to live. And so there's no peace, when you're carrying something. And so we don't want to live like that. And so, until we can find someone, and like, I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit ahead for you, just one little paragraph here. She says, when a secret is finally told, the soul needs more response than, oh really, that's too bad, or oh well, life is tough, and that's the kind of stuff that can be very damaging when we finally feel like, okay, I'm going to tell this person that's been my friend forever, and then they just belittle it like, it's no big deal, and they have no idea, they don't know the whole story, they don't know the context of everything, which is extremely important. But they, the fact that they are not validating in that way, that they just say, no big deal, that matters. It says the teller has to try not to depreciate the matter, and it is a blessing if the listener is a person who can listen with a full heart, and can wince, shiver, and feel a ray of pain cross their own heart and not collapse. Part of healing from a secret is to tell it so that others are moved by it. In this way, a woman begins to recover from shame by receiving the succor and tending she missed during the original trauma. So, having someone who can be compassionate for what we've experienced is incredibly healing. And so I think that if we are open to finding, our tribe, our own kind, our people, we can walk the path together. And until then, it is important to champion ourselves. It's incredibly important because sometimes that's all we have, especially in the midst of the trauma sometimes, because, a lot of times we have been intentionally isolated. And so that's critical. We have to be able to do that. But once we're able to find people to walk the path, it's just a whole nother level, a whole nother layer of healing, and it's beautiful. So I just thank you for walking this path with me, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we'll dive back into chapter 12 very soon. And I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I will see you soon.